We do not have different rules for Democrats or Republicans, different rules for the powerful or the powerless, different rules for the rich or for the poor. We apply the facts and the law in each case in a neutral, nonpartisan manner.
Oh, of course. I do not have any bias. I totally believe him. I bet Bryan does too. Joining me now, host of the President's Daily Brief podcast, under 20 minutes every day. It's freaking outstanding. Bryan Dean Wright. Bryan, look, the DOJ isn't biased. Stop being one of these conspiracy theorists.
Well, if that were only true. So what's embarrassing about his statement is the Department of Justice itself, the Inspector General, has already said that the head of the FBI had some bias when he leaked classified sensitive information to the New York Times. Of course, James Comey leaking that to the Times to handicap then President Donald Trump. So we already have an established pattern, as it were, of someone at the very top of both the DOJ and the FBI trying to handicap someone based on politics. So his statement is just ridiculous on the face of it.
Bryan, okay, so that we have an administrative state that votes all Democratic, I think it's like 94% or something crazy like that. This is something
like
people on the right already know. Yes, exactly right, like our journalists. How did it get that way? That seems like such an insane thing for a country to allow to happen. And it seems like a suicidal thing, to be frank. It just seems like the end of a nation. How did we allow that to happen? How'd that happen?
Yeah, I think what you would probably see is over the past 20 or 30 years, the administrative state, unelected bureaucrats are increasingly those who have like masters and PhDs, advanced education, which of course there's a direct correlation between when folks have those kinds of degrees and then when they end up voting, they tend to vote for Democrats. So I think that's a big part of the explanation. And then you kind of get this tribal experience, right? So when you start working around a certain number of people who all have, generally speaking, the same party affiliation or beliefs, well, you feel a little bit nervous and anxious to speak up against that. And so you don't. And so either you join that crowd or you keep very, very quiet. So I think that's probably, those two reasons are a big reason or part of why we've got this administrative state that is so wildly in one direction.
Bryan, you were CIA ops, right? So people like to imagine CIA, FBI, they like to imagine these guys as being, the pipe hitter types. And then we're constantly disappointed when it's revealed that this CIA director or this FBI guy is a piece of trash. But there is a disconnect between the guys in the field and the nerds behind the desk, is there not?
Oh, absolutely. Look, most of your operators, particularly at the CIA, tend to be conservative. It's because we deal with all the scumballs out in the world. I mean, the terrorists and the prime ministers who are rotten. We listen to the phone calls. We read the emails of these people. We know who they are. Our eyes are very much open to the horrific nature of lots of companies and governments around the world. So that's why you find a lot more conservative-leaning folks politically on the operational side. The analytical side, those are kind of the folks who typically lean a lot further left. They're further, distance from the field and seeing some of the nasty, gross things that us operators get to see. And so it's a much more kind of academic conversation for them about what's happening in the world. These are people with the masters and PhDs that's sitting up in the ivory towers. So there's definitely a disconnect inside the intelligence community and inside the CIA itself of who leans in which direction politically.